It's a beautiful exhibit, by the way. It's fantastic. Now, here, I mean, this is the great thing about Chelsea is you go on a journey around the world in a very short space of time. And this one is Borneo Exotics, and this is a schoolboy's dream. Just look at that. These are the sorts of plants that Victorian plant hunters used to draw, and when they were trying to encourage their sponsors to provide them with a great deal more money to explore parts of the world, they used to, well, how should we say, embellish the truth a little. And there are sketches of these nepenthes with people literally falling into them. They ever so slightly exaggerated the size of them, and there's one fantastic sketch with the man with his legs sticking out the top. You can just hear that. One of the things about Chelsea is there's so much going on, they have to keep telling everyone, reminding people. Robert.
Hello, Chris. Yes.
Borneo Exotics. I mean, this is a schoolboy dream. All sorts of curious and exotic, fantastical plants here. Just tell me a little bit about the way in which you started creating and collecting these plants.
Oh, I used to live in Brunei, Borneo, in the 1970s, and discovered them growing on the hillsides, and was just fascinated by firstly the carnivorous aspect of them and how they turn the table on insects, and also the different shapes, colours and forms, which is what we tried to illustrate on this display, because they weren't much in cultivation until the 80s and the early 90s.
So it's a boyhood interest which has carried you through the rest of your life.
Exactly, yes, yes.
And we very often think of these as being flowers, but of course they're not. It's a leaf modification.
No, that's true, exactly that. It's a very common misconception that this is the flower. It is simply it's a very, very complex modified leaf tip designed to lure and attract and capture the prey and digest the prey. The flower is actually rather uninteresting. There are some in the far corner there.
So these sort of rather...
Those are the flowers, yes.
Yeah.
They're not something you would buy for your mother, I think.
I think if you bought these for your mother or mother-in-law and presented them to her, she may well be a little bit offended.
I would think so, yeah.
But I mean, it is interesting to see the central vein from the leaf coming down here, and that leaf presumably is about to form a picture. You can just see the picture starting to form there. So the blade of the leaf recedes, the vein continues down, and then broadens out and literally wraps around to create the picture that we see at the bottom.
Precisely. It actually, as it grows, it inflates with air and sort of blows up like a balloon over a period of several days. Then the lid pops open, and then it's a fully functional trap. But as you say, it is an extension of the midrib of the leaf. And in fact, we've got a very rare event over here. We have one that's produced two pictures on one leaf, which is extremely rare. Which I could show you if you like at the other end.
Let's have a look. This is something of a coup, I think.
This is the first time it's ever been exhibited. But you see how the rib is split into two, and there are two pictures hanging off the end. It's a natural phenomenon, but it's extremely unusual to see that.
And the picture, of course, is designed to capture insects.
Yes.
But it's an incredibly sophisticated trap, isn't it? It isn't as simple as insects just falling in.
No, not at all. If you're a flying insect, you're in trouble first of all, because when you hit the liquid, there's a wetting agent that stops you using your wings. But insects have suckers and claws, so they can start climbing out using the suckers. But there is a waxy zone in the picture where the wax clogs up the suckers, so it'll fall back in, and the claws are defeated by a very, very slippery area near the top of the picture. And if it happens to reach the top of the picture, there's an overhanging rim to negotiate, so I don't think any insect can escape.
It is horticultural science fiction, isn't it? I mean, it's the most extraordinary adaptation. And the size of some of these things, I mean, presumably that's not just catching insects.
No, this is truly carnivorous. This particular plant has been recorded to capture, digest rats, mice, frogs. So it's truly carnivorous, yes.
And it has the most peculiar texture to it. It's very cool.
A veined texture, yes.
It is. The only way of describing it is a little bit like dead flesh. I mean, it does feel
maybe an apt description.
Really quite gruesome. I mean, it is beautiful. The checkerboard inside, is that designed to attract or confuse its prey?
Exactly. There've been a lot of studies done on this, because if you view that with infrared, it's a checkerboard design which is very attractive to insects, and the flying insects tend to be attracted into it. And these ribs are actually like a runway as well. If an insect lands on that, it tends to guide them in towards the picture, where there's a nectar which they like to feed from. but sooner or later they're going to slip in, and that's that.
And how long does a picture last? I mean, it seems to me to be a very delicate structure.
Surprisingly, on many of the species, they can last for years. Each leaf will produce one, and some of the plants like this, so this is a single plant, has maybe 100 pictures on it. So they can last for months or even years.
And the sort of conditions that you have to create, I mean, you're standing there with a mister and very diligently going around misting. Presumably, the Chelsea Flower Show Pavilion isn't the perfect environment for them.
No. I mean, some species are quite hardy, they wouldn't mind, but a lot of the ones we're displaying here are very rare, and the reason they're rare is because they're very finicky about the growing conditions. So the low humidities here are not ideal for them now.
And a whole range of habitats that they're growing in. Obviously, pendulous here, some ground dwelling. But what are the details of why some of them are pendulous and why some of them are ground hugging? Can the same variety exist at different levels?
Yes, many of them start as terrestrial species. They start on the ground and then they will climb. They're actually vines, but they often start life on the ground. A few are naturally epiphytes. They start on the tree branches to begin with, but most of them, contrary to popular belief, as we try to illustrate here, start on the ground and then they'll climb, especially if there's a source of light. If a tree has fallen in the jungle, which is what we try to illustrate here, a clearing is formed, the sunlight for the first time, they'll scramble and climb to the treetops. And as they do, the type of picture or trap that's formed changes in shape and form to capture the different types of insects that they find at different altitudes on the canopy. They
are staggeringly sophisticated, and presumably this is the result of millions and millions of years of evolution. Is it a very early plant in evolutionary terms?
Well, apparently not. It's not known exactly how many millions of years these first appeared, but they're relatively new, and they're evolving all the time. There are new species actually appearing within a few decades, and there's a lot of work being done on why they are genetically so active, and they're literally evolving in front of our eyes. But they're also becoming extinct due to deforestation, mostly in some countries. So it's a race against time to get the seeds and try and put them into tissue culture, which is what I've been doing for the last 25 years.
Well, I think they are the most extraordinary plants, and I mean, they are beautiful in a very sort of peculiar way. Thank you very much for, and yeah, do try and keep the public away from them. I don't think people putting their fingers in, it's not
Thank you, Chris.
not going to be perfect. Fantastic. Thank you very much.